Hey everybody, welcome to the FreeMind Podcast. In today's episode, we are thrilled to welcome Victor Gielisse, a distinguished feature in the culinary world with over 5 decades of rich, diverse experiences. From his early days as an apprentice in the Netherlands to his pivotal role at the Culinary Institute of America, Victor's not only witnessed, but also shaped the evolution of the culinary industry. His unique perspective combines traditional craftsmanship with modern educational strategies, highlighting the transformative power of culinary education. Join us as Victor shares his journey through the realms of culinary arts, the impact of global experiences on his career, and his forward-thinking approach to culinary education and industry innovation. Whether you're a culinary professional or just passionate about the art and science of cooking, Victor's insights are bound to inspire and enlighten. Let's jump right in and check out Victor's story.
Victor Gielisse. I'm a principal partner of CIA Consulting and have been in this business for, let's just say, for a mature period of time, about 55 plus years, right? So I've seen some things, and good or bad, but it's been an enormous journey, and it's all about people.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about on top level from your business evolution to where it is now. I mean, you've been in it so long. You've seen such an evolution in your industry. Talk a little bit about from a top level standpoint, and then we can drill down on a few of those topics.
Yeah, what is interesting, Nate, I grew up in the Netherlands, so tiny little country across the pond. But my education in the Netherlands really was a traditional apprenticeship. It's an apprenticeship model where the craft is taught from hand to hand. You learn under a master, and basically you get what you need to do. You're told what to do and how to do it, but not the why. And that's why I'm such a proponent of and an advocate for culinary education programming under faculty and that sort of thing. But I had a great apprenticeship, 3 years in the Netherlands, and then from there, you go out and basically you have an apprenticeship and it becomes a journeyman. And today's probably more termed journey person, but you go out on the road and you basically hone your skill craft. So from the Netherlands, I went quickly to Germany, Italy, France, back to Germany, back to Holland. So I rotated around and worked really under great culinarians, great chefs, and really learning my craft. I was then in Switzerland at the time, and I moved to Southern Africa. At the time, it was Rhodesia and Southern Africa. I spent some time there and was fortunate to be transferred from the company back into the United States. So then I realized that an apprenticeship is great, but I needed a little bit more formal education. So I started work on that and worked in hotels and restaurants, opened a hotel here in Dallas called the Western Galleria, was part of opening crews around the country, around the world, and then realized, I want to try and open my own restaurant. And, that was a 10-year track. And I've seen so much change over the years in terms of the labor force, in terms of how people react and adapt to change and how change is really driven. And then certainly when you think about COVID, the impact that had on our industry and what it is that people currently do. So today, I spent 25 years with the Culinary Institute, not just as a faculty member. I was the Dean of Culinary Education and Baking and Pastry Education. Then I basically headed up their consulting division. So, the CIA has been always very strategic about how they grow their business, how they grow their programming, but also how they can take on additional revenue streams that benefits the institution and helps them out. So our consulting division with the CIA tackles the problem on two sides. We take care of the client needs, the customer needs, and then also tell the client any and all revenue that is generated that creates a margin for us goes right back into scholarship for students. So our clients actually do good on both ends, right? So, and then our president asked me to head up the advancement division. So the CIA is a culinary university, if you will, with master's programs. So if you think about traditional colleges, fundraising is traditionally done by more academia rather than a culinarian. People would say, what is a chef doing raising funds? But most of our fundraising, we get support of about 80% of industry that supports our fundraising.
Oh, wow.
And that language I understand. I understand the food and beverage industry, the hotel and restaurant industry, and I'm able to speak to those audiences. So from that standpoint, it was a tremendous experience for me. Always looking for, and I really push my student body or people that I talk to. You have to look for different ways to increase your marketable skill set. So as a culinarian, all of a sudden, I find myself many years later as the VP of Advancement and Business Development for the CIA, which if you had asked me that at 16, I would have told you, yeah, Nate, that's impossible. That ain't going to happen. But it did, right? So today I spend most of my time as you know, I step back from my role as the VP. Most of my time now is in terms of workforce development, or a client might come and ask me to come in, do some site assessment, and help them improve their business. But I deal with people, and it's always about the people, and to me, the people make the differences. And if you provide an individual with some insight on how they can perform better, you show them how to perform better, you allow them to deliver that task, and then give them feedback on that. 99% of the time, these folks will embrace that and are just absolutely happy that you're there and all that. And I just came back from a project we did in the Med on a brand launch of a cruise ship. I spent some time with the crew on board there, and you should see these folks. They work 14, 15-hour shifts. And when you go in there and you work on the line with them and show them a technique that maybe makes them more efficient in what it is, helps them build on their ability, and you do it with empathy and passion, they embrace that and make it happen. So it's been a real wild ride, I mean, it's a long time. And to that end, when COVID hit, that was terrible for our country, that's really bad. Terrible for our industry, but I also saw organizations that utilize that crisis, that chaos, to be more innovative and to say, okay, we are shut down, but how can we still drive our business? What is it that we can do? And I saw some organizations out here, and even here in Dallas. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Hillstone Group, but they have restaurants like Houston's and R&D and all that. Well, they couldn't serve beverages inside, so they went outside. They set up shop outside, man, and they couldn't do their entire menu. But whatever they did, they refocused on how the packaging was done. They refocused on how to deliver to the customer the product in a different way. And I think that is sometimes, that how do you drive that whole notion of innovation? How can you change what people are thinking? How can you adapt to the situation and all that? It's not easy, but it can be done, right? So
no, absolutely. Talk a little bit about, for anybody that's listening that isn't necessarily in the food world and isn't familiar with CIA being the Culinary Institute of America. Talk a little bit about what the organization does. I know that's a loaded question because you guys do so much, and you've been a part of my entire career. I've seen in the back end and stuff. So knowing, like, when people go through those programs, it brings instant credibility to them. And I think it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk with you today was just bringing forward more so also the organization as a whole, in addition to the external stuff you're doing. I think as a whole, understanding, stepping back for a second so people can understand that path and how there are various paths
for your education and your progressive professional career?
Yeah, so that is really a great question, because I joined the college in 1998, and if you look at that time frame, the change that has taken place, a traditional college, a culinary college, perhaps at the time offering only the 2-year degree program, and they had just started the baccalaureate program, the 4-year degree program. So the pathway to getting a education in culinary arts and hospitality was very focused. But over the years, the college has done a great job in innovating on their curriculum, adding different tracks in terms of opportunities for those individuals who want to come in for 4-year, declaring a 4-year degree with a specialization attached to it. So whether that is food science or food and beverage management or wines, or it doesn't matter. Or for that matter, people come to the culinary now that are not just in a 2-year culinary program or a 2-year baking and pastry program, but they say we want to declare as a bachelor student and go into food writing. So their whole thing is food journalism, and they are very active in food ethics and food awareness and all those issues. So currently we have about 52,000 graduates out there. We operate a campus in Hyde Park, New York, which has 2,400 students, and it is a on-campus housing. And this facility, I don't know, Nate, if you have visited Hyde Park location.
No.
It's spectacular, right? So that is sort of the core of the institution. And then they have a campus in Greystone, which is in the Napa Valley, St. Helena. They have a campus in San Antonio. So we are basically on 3 big campuses nationwide. Then we have a campus in Napa, and where we basically do our ACAP program, which is an advanced culinary arts program that is for students that have a 4-year degree program, but want to refine their culinary piece that they haven't received. So they come in for a program there. And also all our conferences, we are very active in the conferences and the thought leadership programs that we bring back to the industry. So professionals out there wanting to come to a conference, come to the CIA, come and attend the program that is 4 or 5 days long, and you can soak up all that knowledge with all those thought leaders that are out there. And we do that on menus of change. We do it on wines and beverages. We do it on healthy kitchen, healthy lives, and that sort of things. Those programs. Then we have a campus in Singapore, and that campus is only a baccalaureate program. So it's very the campus and the CIA. If you look at a 75-year history, it has grown so dramatically and has impact. We like to believe our grads have really had a humongous impact on the industry. They are in leadership positions, and that is really what the college has taken on. The notion that we want to provide the world's best culinary education and the world's best hospitality education, and perhaps for those individuals that come in and declare the 4-year program, they may pursue like leadership roles. This program is certainly not for everybody, right? Because it is clearly it's not inexpensive. Education is not inexpensive, but 85 to 90% of our student body does receive scholarships, and graduation rate at the college is extremely high. And actually, our students pay back their loans. So that is another one of those things, right? It's a great institution. I spent, as I said, 25 years with them, and it's just wonderful. It's who I am, and so everything that I do in a day-to-day life now, it reflects my background at the CIA.
What we look at, what do we from your perspective as the graduates coming out? I mean, we see a lot of things in the media and the news, and my specifically, I work with bars and restaurants all day long, and so I talk to them about their different pain points and things like that exist. What do you see as the biggest challenges for your recent graduates right now, as far as that goes? Because obviously, it's not the same. Obviously, you could say, oh, there's tons of jobs, everybody needs worker. It's not the same type of thing as the people that you're sending out. So what are the challenges that they're seeing when they're after their graduation?
Yeah, I think that's a pain point, and that is something where we haven't we haven't really figured it all out yet. I think, right? Because culinary education is expensive, and they will say, well, is it worth the effort? Because the students that graduate are dealing with that burden of the loans, right? So finding an opportunity in industry takes lots of networking. So a student that comes in the freshman year, in my days as the dean, I would have a lot of mentees, and I press them on networking within the industry and really driving, because once they apply for a position out there, the position or the money that is being paid for that position might not equate to what the cost of that degree, right? So they're challenged with that, and this is where people like myself, other faculty members, really can help the student get through that piece, to understand that they have to build some credibility. What we do see is, in my days, it was like, okay, you graduate, you get out of your apprenticeship program, and then you still work for peanuts for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, right? Because you have to learn the craft. Today, it's a little different, so it's more selective in that the individuals can choose. They can choose like a track in food science, and I think there's tremendous opportunity in the food science realm, because culinarians have that notion, not only the creativity, they understand flavor and taste and development of that food, but they also have then the science part. And to find a role and a track maybe with the larger food manufacturer and work with them, because consumers want high quality food, traceable, clean labels. So all these things are attractive to companies. In the restaurants, where it is a bit more challenging, because graduates coming out, expectation is immediately like a sous chef role, which is a supervisory position. And that might be paid better, but is that the right thing for that individual at the time? So mentorship, mentoring, getting a student really and a graduate really lined up with their career track, that is really important. And I think that helps them navigate these initial challenges on the early years of their career, where the financial aspect might not be as good as what they're really looking for.
It's interesting too when you talk about technology and social media, and I've been in a couple conversations recently in these interviews where we go through and another common theme is how much more you have to expose yourself, and that being online, and whether these to get a real job at a certain place or anything like that, you have to be more than just a resume. How do you work with? Does the school work with students on personal branding and social media, and how to make sure that they're presentable in a way that is attractive to future employers, as well as, let's say, their own fan base, if that was their aspirations?
Yeah, great question. Our Office of Career Services does a lot of these sort of workshops, right? But Nate, it all depends also on the individual.
Mm-hmm.
And for my perspective has always been, if a student knocks on my door, hey chef, can you help me with, that is an individual that's seeking help and wants to be coached or mentored along the way. And those are also the people you're still in touch with today, right? So
Mm-hmm.
It's also about the individual, because it's a give and take scenario. But we provide coaching on how to write a resume so it gets the attention. And I know today with the media, I cannot tell you the countless, luckily for me in my career, I didn't have to apply for too many jobs. They've always been there. But if you push some resumes out there for giggles, I can tell you, Nate, you get no replies because it has just some acronym or some mention of something in there, and you will be just kicked out. So it has to be about personal networking, knowing the folks that you're talking about. I talk to our students and would tell them, if it is the restaurant business you want to do for the next 5 years, great. Find out what are the best restaurant companies. Do their values align with your values? Have a look at their mission statement and all these pieces that can help them get some vocabulary together that at least help them enter into the door. I think on the same token, I will tell you, and the CIA knows this, I'm not a proponent for free people not being paid on an externship or people not being paid for a stagiaire. I know that's a practice that was done tremendously way back, but it is still exercised, and I don't think that is on an equal basis for all students. Because just if I'm a student and graduating and I have money, I don't mind working for free for the best chef that there is, right? So there is a moral issue for me with those sort of things. I think the playing field needs to be, let's give access to all that information to all students that are out there and that are wanting to make a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, I do scholarship work. So even though you got a scholarship, you still had to work at the school. Right. And I was cool with that. I was fine with that. It was no big deal because they paid me, therefore I paid back. And I was my job was to cut articles out of a science magazine with a razor blade. And then, every Wednesday I would come in and there'd be just a 10-foot stack of magazines, and it would just be Post-it notes on all of them as to what to cut out and with an X-Acto knife and a razor blade. But my point of what I'm trying to say is then I get to college, and I went to a college at Drexel University in Philadelphia, which is a huge co-op program. Actually, they have a nice little culinary program there as well. But what they have is these 6 months on, 6 months off, where you go to class for 6 months and then you go to work for 6 months, and you do that for 5 years. That's the program of the school. And so many of my friends, they went and took internships that were unpaid. And the school was getting nervous because I kept turning down jobs, and they're like, "Why are you turning down jobs? Like, just take the first job." And I was like, "Fuck that!" I was like, "I'm getting paid. Like, even if I'm getting paid $7 an hour or $5 an hour, I'm not driving an hour every day somewhere for somebody to yell at me and then not have some sort of compensation." And they're like, "Well, that's kind of arrogant of you." I was like, "It's not." I said, "I have a job. I have a tuition. I have built, I'm not at a liberty where I can check out for 60 minutes and not be paid or compensated for my time." And I applaud you, is what my long story short is trying to get to. Like, it very much gives me hope for the future to know that there's more people like that, because I did the same thing when I went into business. Every internship I partnered with the local colleges and I paid them all. And I was in the reverse, where I had tons of kids signing up because it was one of the only ones that was a paid internship in the whole college career program. So
yeah, not everybody agrees with me, and I get that. But in general, when we have our career fairs, we do that 4 times a year.
Mm-hmm.
You get about 100 to 120 businesses coming. In my role as the VP of Advancement, I would get casino operators come to us from Vegas and say, "Okay, I need 450 cooks." They would just come in. I said, I'd take them all, right? Because they are so desperately for good people. But then you drill down, and what I told the student body, particularly the graduates, I tell them, they want intrinsically motivated people to come and work for the organization. They want to know that they're technically capable, right? And can they work with other people? Are they pursuing their personal growth? Do they stay current? Do they have a professional profile? So if you are on social media, that once that's out there, it's out there. So be careful how you handle that, Demonstrate some empathy when you deal with other people. Assume when a person is speaking with you, positive intent, and so that is how I stage it with whoever I deal with, in when it was in the student body or graduates or people that now call on me and say, Chef, I'm in a rut. I'm 3 years at the Ritz-Carlton. I don't know what to do. What do you suggest? I'm making a salary, but I'm not cutting it. And then you try and coach them to that next level. And often that starts at the ability to put thoughts on paper and get a resume that makes sense. Help them get a personal interview. That is, of course, always the best, the personal connection. But sometimes the majority of people, and Nate, I'm sure you have seen that when folks get to college in their freshman year, a large percentage of the folks don't really know what it is that they want to do. They haven't figured it out yet. And I ended up in this business because my grandfather was in the business. My grandmother was in the business. Then my parents were in the business. Okay, puppy, you're 8 years old. Get in there. Go do it. Go wash dishes. So that is how this all developed. And later on in life, you look at these sort of things because in those days, in the 60s, what they look at is, particularly in the Netherlands, so they look at your education track through primary school, right? Your first 6 grades are looked at as, okay, how is this kid doing? Well, he's a bum. So let's put him in a technical track, right? So that is how you are evaluated. And today, education has come so much further, and the students are better prepared for it. So I think we are in a good place, but a lot has to come from the individual too. So hence I mentioned some of these things. And you have to be able to play with others nicely. You got to be in that sandbox together because everybody brings some ability, some empathy, and some motivations. And how do you navigate that, right? So.
And it's interesting when you talk about the art and the science of it. And it's I lived one of my best friends is a chef as well, and I really living with him was also amazing because he was just spontaneously just open the cupboards and just create magic every time that it was his turn. So I never minded having to do dishes on that night. But with that said, it's a weird like tease sometimes to being in that industry. And I've been in it from a vendor standpoint as well as the bartender standpoint, and then him being in the back of house in the kitchen. And it's like, it's one of those things where you have these, not egos, these attitudes in a good way. I mean, egos in a good way, in a most confident way. And it's like finding finding the art and the science of the balance of the temperatures to where you can actually flow is beauty, is what I'm trying to get at. Is when I would watch him in a certain job he was in, or a certain kitchen or an event, and the team was flowing, it was just, I mean, it was mesmerizing.
Yeah, that is, and certainly I can reflect back on my career where there have been some hot moments and all that, and you wish only that you only could have applied what you know now in the younger years, right? but we don't get that luxury, right? But so to that end, when I've had many teams, right? Many teams in the kitchen, on the stations, then at the school in different environments, and that's why I say people make the difference, right? Because you as the leader have to figure out who are these individuals that possess the capacity to generate those ideas, be that creative side, and then who on my team can actually go and do the grunt work, go and execute it, and who can manage the process of strategy so we stay on task and on strategy and all that. And do we have a process of discipline in place that allows us to navigate all of that? And that's a difficult thing. And as you go through land, that's the other thing I think I've always told my people that work with me, surround yourself with people that are better than you are. So if I looked at the leadership of the institution, I was like a sponge soaking up that knowledge, right? And I think that is very helpful for an individual in this business, because this business is tough. Like, this is a rough, culinary arts is rough. And that's why perhaps I sometimes meet people that are just came from a conference. I was at the Marine Hotel Association. I gave a talk on macro trends and trends. And I asked how many chefs in the room, right? So I get a handful. They're all F&Bs and general managers and all that, and in the cruise line business. But then graduates were in there, but they're not really in the business anymore. They are in it's either in the vendor relationship or they are in the hotel operation, because this business is tough. And I will, the students, when in my dean role, they would come in. I have a meeting with them as they came in the program, and we talk about it, right? Because it's also about attitude and being able to adjust your attitude. Don't be a grumbler. Don't be a grumbler, because you're going to be pointed out. You're going to say, hey, this kid is, Vic is a grumbler. So don't associate yourself with him. And that becomes a problem. So, and if you have issues, and our chefs at the college have been phenomenal. Every chef faculty member has a set of mentees that they nurture, that they talk about. And then still, when these kids graduate, it's still not easy, because this is a difficult business. But if you tell them that this is just a platform that helps project you to that next level, and then to that other level. And then there are folks, Nate, I meet guys that are on the line and perfectly happy with that, and they do that forever.
And that's you can't force some people.
Exactly. But they do look for ways, and how can I re-energize what I'm doing? How can I do something different and all that? So this is a fascinating industry. If you look at it in 2000, what is it, 23, $997 billion industry. And seeing that after COVID, I had my voice during that stupid lockdown stuff. What a crazy world, right? And a lot of people in our industry got hurt, because this is not an industry where you are extremely wealthy. You make your living and hope to put some money aside and have a family, but it's difficult. It's very tough.
It's one thing that a lot of people I don't think understand or appreciate or respect about, and that's, I'm going to speak on behalf of a deli all the way to a fine dining Italian white tablecloth restaurant. It doesn't, some margins are better than others, but at the end of the day, it confuses me in a certain way to watch people, the way they treat servers and stuff like that, because of the way that and also the business as a whole. A lot of people think, oh, it's a business, it's this and that. They have their own. Everybody assumes that since you have your own business, you're rich, and it's one of those things where I'm one as well. I had my own business since 2008, and people are like, oh, you've had a business that long, you must be really rich. I'm like, no, I'm just a survivor.
Yeah.
One of those things where I've always resonated well with kitchen staff in a lot of senses, and one thing that I always did as well is the speed. So it's the speed in which the situational management, and I've always appreciated anybody that worked in those areas and had the outside thought, and not somebody that does. I know what you're saying is they come through and this is their job and they're going to do it forever and that's their enjoyment. That's cool and that's perfectly fine. What I found is amazing is watching the ones who want to progress through and do bounce around those different facets of the industry. When they realized all those transferable skills, it wasn't necessarily this exact task. It was better. It was bigger than that. And when they're able to see what about them was bigger than that one task, that's powerful. And I think for you, I'd imagine, I don't want to speak for you, but seeing your graduates start to find their niches, while it's not necessarily always in the kitchen, it must be beautiful to see them fall into place that makes them happy.
Oh my God, there's so many, there's so many grads out there that are doing amazing things, whether it is in corporations or with QSR. It doesn't matter. They are making a difference, right? And my fascination, has always been with what happens in the human brain when it comes to what's the difference between somebody's being just smart, street smart, knows what he or she is doing, has a good craft, but what is that difference of being a innovator?
Yep.
Something that can stand the test of time and that makes a difference. And I've seen so many examples over the years, and I'm sure you're familiar with a little poaching technique. So we would always have adjust the flames, watch it doesn't go crazy, put a thermometer in there and watch it and move it. Now, if you just think about that, all that time spent on that, if we could have said, there got to be a piece of equipment out there that can do this for us, right? And today it's there, or an agitator kettle, and I'm fascinated by what sets a person aside, that can be that innovation piece that can help us be more efficient in the job, more productive and happier on top of it, right? Why is it that we need to slap kettles with stock pots with 60, 80 pounds, and later on we have a back issue? Is there a gadget that can help us do this kind of stuff? And it's that sort of thing, right? And how does that is what, when I sit at night in a chair, relax with a cocktail, that's what I think about. How can you do it? But I think there's so much opportunity still today to help individuals in the workforce to become better. And honestly, have you been into a in-flight kitchen?
No.
Yeah. So that is another element. It's a fascinating business. Spend a lot of time in Alpha Foods or Sky Chefs and go into these facilities. And they are basically, what they're in the business of is making food for the next day flight, right? So if you think about that, how do they do that? How can you get them energized? How can you get these folks to smile as they assemble thousands of meals on a band conveyor belt and all that? And I think that's rewarding for me as a chef to go in there, and if you can just impact one or two individuals, right? That brings a smile on their face, or they send you an email, or give you a phone call afterwards. Chef, that was really good, and because these are hardworking individuals, they're not making a lot of money, right? They're getting by, they're doing good, they're raising their family in an industry that is very powerful, and it's not everybody that gets to the top. So from my standpoint, you mentioned something on celebrities, right? And I just had a presentation on, because we have seen a variety of, everybody does want to be a celebrity chef right now. And I think the celebrity really is the farmer. And the example that I gave, the small farmer, the farmers out there doing an amazing job, a yeoman's job in product. When I first came to Dallas in 81, I came to Dallas, and I ordered herbs from our purveyors. And they said, well, I have flat leaf parsley and I have curly parsley. Which one do you want? So in order to get some of these products, right, you have to go to speak with the purveyors, then go see a local farmer and talk to them. And today we have more local farmers than ever before, more farmers markets. So I see them as that new celebrity that has given consumers a whole different knowledge base. And then the bartender, you brought up the bartender. I tell you, bars, oh my gosh. If you have a bartender that is on, that knows his business, I tell you, and it's magic. I talked to some operators last week at this conference. He says their bar sales is out of control. He says it's amazing, and it's all in how that service gets delivered, that beverage gets delivered, and then that hospitality piece. The bartenders for me are that next celebrity person.
I used to go to the dumbest bars that had the worst drinks, but they had the best bartenders that had the best conversations. And I would sit there and drink that beer that I knew that draft line was never cleaned, but I still drank it with a smile on my face because I wanted to sit there and talk to this person.
You're spot on, because I think so. That is that technical aspect, right? We talk about that too a lot with our grads. It says that when you start working at Ritz-Carlton and you have a graduate degree from the CIA, the expectation is the craft. That's the technical ability. But then there's 51% of your soft skills that becomes key in how it makes you effective. And that is really not just in the supervisory roles position, but when a customer walks in the door, and I'm always blown away by these organizations that do this really well. There are some great restaurant groups that do it really well. You walk in, you have your reservation, you're seated. Within 30 seconds, the host takes your, what can I get you to drink? And then the server brings it. So there's this immediate reaction. And people can be forgiving on an element of execution on the food, execution on service and beverage, but they won't forget how it made them feel when they left. And that's why people go back. Your point, that bartender was really good, but that's why you go back, right? And the beer glass might be a little warm. I actually never,
and I will tout myself as we share educations. I have a master's of beer styles. There's not many people I can brag about, but I got it from the Siebel Institute in Chicago. It's a legitimate degree. Yeah. So with that degree, I never brought a beer with that guy ever. But I don't even care if he ever knew anything about beer. But it was just that was the vessel of the therapy that we needed at that time in our lives. And I just there's a book that I recently read called Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know if you've seen that book floating around lately, but if you haven't, I'll send you a copy of it. I've been handing it out to people in the industry just because I absolutely love the book. So I'll mail you a copy. And it's what it talks about. It goes a little bit into to your aspect of what you're talking about. That unreasonable hospitality is actually the opposite. That next level of, he's talking about different times where somebody would be in a restaurant, in one of his restaurants, and it was a fine dining restaurant, but they talked about they're on their way to the airport and they didn't get that hot dog. It was in Chicago or whatever, and they didn't get that Chicago hot dog. So while they're talking and they're getting their bags, he has the guy run out, grab a hot dog, create something on a plate real quick, and then give them their experience right before they get to the airport. And it's like one of those things where I got chills just telling you that. And it's like something that in that moment, he made that decision in less than a second. He created an entire thing in less than 5 seconds, but he's making an experience that person's going to tell that story for 20, 30, 50 years.
You are so spot on, man. It is, Nate, I tell you, that is probably, and that comes with life and experience, but that you're spot on. That is how did you, because we're human beings, right? After all, we are people. And, I read this book from, Joseph Michelli here. It's the new gold standard. It's really why Ritz-Carlton was, why they are who they are, right? We are ladies and gentlemen. We serve ladies and gentlemen. So it's that people connection. And so they gave, what I was blown away with, they gave the front office staff, people that worked on the front desk, the ability to make instant decisions to return customer satisfaction, whether it was a reduction on their bill, whether it was a voucher for a meal, it doesn't matter. But they stopped the negativity right in its track. And I don't know why no more people do this kind of thing. It's brilliant, it's really well done.
I used to do with that front of house thing that you're talking about. We used to do something with anyone. A decision had to be above $500, I think it was, or something like that. And it was, don't come to me with, and it wasn't a rude, like, don't come to me. It was actually an empowering thing where it was like, you can make this decision, and here's where, and then certain people, the trust threshold would go up. You know what I mean? And like, I would be on part of their quarterly and annual meetings where it's like, your decision monetization is this much higher. And it wasn't a data thing. Like it was just like, it was a trust barrier of like how much I feel like I could risk with them, but yeah, it was that $500 was, you didn't have to call anybody for approvals on anything above or anything below $500. Yeah. But it was an intent of empowerment, and it got packaged the wrong way where people were like, oh, they just don't want you to be bothered. And it's like, that's what happens sometimes with the way we were in our corporate world. We're like, oh, well, just because you gave me that task, it's just because you don't want to do it. Where it was like, that empowerment is something that was lost. And I think we're getting that back though, is people want to be empowered and they want to control as much as they can control. And I think that's exciting to see that people want to gain that.
Yeah, you're spot on. I tell the folks that reach out now to me, whether they're graduates or still students, to seek out employment with folks where you can learn from the most. They are best at what it is that they do. There's a great culture in the place, because without the culture, it's really nothing. Culture really fuels the result of the organization. And it's hard to put your fingers on, right? But that's what I enjoyed in my years at the school. They are always so focused, and I loved working with Dr. Ryan and Mark Erickson, the great people, and the rest of the team, all great. But there's also accountability, and I tell the folks that in life nothing is free, buddy. You have to work for it. But if you're held accountable and you see others are held accountable, then you drive that organization forward. It's really good stuff. Yeah, it's a great business, but it's a lot of hard work, and you have to be ready for it, and you need to know what it is that you want to do, and you can help people formulate that in their mind. It takes time. I didn't know. They put me into a technical college at 12 years old. What the hell is that? 12 years old, as a boy in the Netherlands, I was thinking about girls. I wasn't thinking about anything else. I mean, it's a whole different mindset, right?
We have certain parts of the United States when I was growing up that was the same thing. They would separate us into different tracks, and then it was all this different crazy stuff based on the standardized tests that we took, and all. It's just
exactly.
It was just wild, and to look to where no wonder I'm so resistant of staying in my own lane sometimes, because we were just indoctrinated with it. But Chef, I want to thank you for your time. I cannot thank you enough for the generosity you've given me with your time, with your candor, with your open conversation. I respect and appreciate everything you have done, and I look forward to continuing to get to know you better. I don't think this is the last conversation we're going to have. So I very much, and I can't wait to cross paths in the conventions and different things like that. I'm sure
it would be fun. We have a beer together and we'll talk.
Sounds good, Chef. You have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Nate, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Are you looking for a way to grow your business, reach new customers, and increase your sales? If so, you need the FreeMind Group. Founded in 2008 and a provider of creative and strategic solutions for the food and beverage industry. Whether you need branding, marketing, product development, or innovation, the FreeMind Group can help you achieve your goals and unleash your potential. Visit our website at thefreemindgroup.com and get a free consultation today. Thank you for listening. See you next time.